Okay, Block Party Prairie Point Favorites. This is our October block, the second one. It's not too late to sign up if you still want to. Actually, it's never too late. But today I'm going to show you how to put together this block. For the pattern here, which starts out with a 4-patch, so I'm just going to go over that briefly. You're going to cut out all your squares. There's 10 of each to make 5 little 4-patch blocks, and you'll sew them in 2s, and then sew those 2 together to make the 4-patch. Now I've already pressed a few of them, but I wanted to show you what you can do when you're pressing these. You can take your little seam like that and twist it, and it makes a little looks like a little miniature 4-patch in there, and then you can press it going both ways. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to press this seam this way and this seam the other way. Now you don't have to do it that way. You could press the whole thing in one direction, but this does help to spread out the bulk so you don't have as much bulk there in the middle. Now, since I pressed it on the wrong side, I'm going to turn it over and press it again on the right side just to make sure I didn't get any folds and creases in there when I was pressing that seam. I want it nice and opened up there like that. So that's what it'll look like. Okay, then the next step on here is to make your half square triangles, and we've done this so many times before, but just want to show you one way to do it is to draw a line, and I've already drawn it here, but I'm going to take my ruler. Now if you have a bigger ruler like this, that'll work. You could even use your 24-inch ruler, but it's really awkward. And instead of using that one, I like to use for these kinds of things a little bit narrower ruler, that, or if you have even something like this, it's only 1.5 inches wide. They're great for drawing. So you're going to put that on there and draw your line. And then another way to do it, which I've told you before, is to put that on there like that and cut it, and then sew a 1/4 inch from the cut edge. Now, some of you may say, well, I do that, but my little points get kind of caught up in the throat plate and shoved down in there. I'm going to show you a couple ways that you can prevent that. First of all, I'm going to show you, do real quickly to sew a 1/4 inch seam on each side of this line. Now, since these squares are oversized and you're going to trim them up, I'm not too worried about having an exact 1/4 inch along here because it doesn't have to be the exact size. It's going to be trimmed up later. Turn that around and then come back this way. All right, and then I trim those off. If you're doing several, you just keep going and doing them until you're all done. Now, another way is to just sew a 1/4 inch from the edge here. And okay, you can use a 1/4 inch foot, but when you use a 1/4 inch foot, you have to make sure that the edge of the foot is a 1/4 inch away from your needle. If it's not, you're going to have to find a tool that will help you find that. Now, I don't have a 1/4 inch foot on here. I can still do it, but I need to know where my 1/4 inch is away from the needle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use this little tool with holes in it, and it has a 1/4 inch hole right 1/4 inch from the edge of this little ruler. So that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to put that on here, and I'm going to find, let's see, I got to get this fixed here. Okay, that's the default position. Put that in there and get down there, I can see it. Okay, so my 1/4 inch away is right over my feed dogs, and I don't want those covered up with the measuring item I'm going to use. So I want to move my needle over a little bit. So I'm going to move it over 1, and I know it goes 2 because I've been practicing this. So I'm going to move it over 2 spaces, and the 1/4 inch away from the needle is right there. So I'm going to use this little cutting edge tape here, and they peel off and they'll stick to your sewing machine. Now this one, I don't want it to stick to my threads. This one can go on here with my yellow ruler straight, green ruler I guess it is. I'm going to put that right on there. The problem with doing this though is it's going right over the little plate that goes into my bobbin case. And if I want to change the bobbin, then I got to remove that whole thing off. So what I'm going to do, it depends on your machine. With your machine, it might not be that way. I'm going to cut this in half. It's really sticky. Okay, it's not the scissors I meant to use. Okay, I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm just going to put it back here so that when I want to change the bobbin, this won't be in the way. Okay, and I want it nice and straight. All right, there we go. Okay, so this ruler butts right up to that purple strip on there. Now I'm going to take this out, get rid of my little ruler, and I'm ready to sew. So that's going to help me measure my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now one way to prevent that from jamming up down there is to use a little starty. So I'm going to take this piece of fabric here, just a little scrap, you cut up a little rectangle or something, double it over and sew to the edge of it. And then I'm going to start slipping my triangle right in there and have it lined up with my purple cutting edge strip. Okay. And as I sew, I'm keeping the edge of my fabric right along that purple strip. And that is supposed to be going back there. There we go. All right, so then I will just move on over to my next one. And there's usually not a problem with it getting jammed down in your throat plate if you just kind of go one to the other. All right, so I'll cut that and remove those. Now, another thing you can do besides using the cutting edge is the little seam guide here. So there's little 6 of them in here, and they work the same way. They're just shorter, and you don't have to cut them off. But you can lay those on there. They have a little edge to it. They're not flat like a piece of tape. It gives you a little edge that will butt your fabric right up to it. When you're doing the sewing pieces on your machine, and you have are worried about the fabric getting pushed down in your throat plate, that's because you have a little oval throat plate. You might see if you can get a throat plate that has a single hole in it. Not all machines have this available, but I'm going to hold it up against this. But this one, this is from another machine. It's not for the Eversewn. If you can get a throat plate with a single hole in it, it'll prevent lots of problems with fabric pieces getting pushed down. They just won't go down in there. And so what it means is you can't do a zigzag on here. It's only for straight stitch, but it is a nice thing to have if you can get one. Okay, so now I'm going to press these and trim them up for you. Okay, nice and flat. Always make sure that your seams are all the way wide open here. You don't want little tucks and folds in, and that's why I like to start with the set my seam here and then press to the side one direction from the top side. Okay, now to square these up, last month I showed you 3 different ways to square them up, so I'm just going to do it one way this time, and this is with the 4.5 inch square Creative Grids ruler, because that's what I happen to have handy right here. So I just put that on there and square it up. So I line that up there. I'll give you a little more detail here in a minute. Okay, there's not much to take off. So if you have a wide seam allowance, you might not have enough to take off, or might even have your ruler end up bigger than your square. So be sure you have an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, one more time, I'm going to take the 4.5 inch square ruler with the diagonal line, put it right there on the diagonal seam. I hope my square unit here is bigger than my ruler all the way around. The corners of my square and the line go right on the seam line on both sides. Cut that way and that way. If you have a rotary mat, that's really helpful. That way and that way. All right, and I have 2 squares. I need 2 more to finish it up. This was a really simple block. You just have the 4 patches and half square triangles that are nice and large, so easy to put together and square up. This is actually a variation of a 9-patch block because there's 9 units that we're going to put together. But I'm going to follow my instruction guide here and lay these out. Now, the tricky thing is, the pattern shows the darker one going this way, but that's the color. The background is the one like this. So when you're doing the Amish version here, remember that your background is dark. So because the background goes in this position, I'm going to follow the instructions. Even though it's white here, I have a dark background. And then I'm going to put my accent there, and these all go in the same direction. All these green ones are going to go in the same direction. They're not going to go like that or that way and that way. They all go this way. This one here, and nope, this one goes here. Put these in here. I like to think of them as butterflies, and that's how I make sure I get them put together. Okay, that's the way it's instructed to do it. If you're doing this one, then you're going to have your light ones here. Your background goes through here. Here the background goes the same way. Now, if you put it together and you have them done the other way, don't rip it out. Don't worry about it. I think the main thing is to make sure you have all of one color going in one direction. You wouldn't want that one to be there and then these all this way. But if you had them all going that way, or let's see, with the green going up there like that, as if the green was in the background spot, you got it all done. Don't worry about it. You don't have to take it out. And also, if you have it switched where you have these like this, don't worry about that either. In fact, maybe you want to do it that way, but it doesn't matter. Another thing too is when you're looking at your block and laying it out, the design goes in this direction. You know, there's not really a design of these that way. They kind of go like this. So if you're looking at the picture on the website or one of these blocks and it's turned differently, you might think that you have it put together wrong. But if you want to make sure that you've done it the way it says, have it laid out just like is shown on the pattern here. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so here is what your finished block will look like if you're doing the Amish quilters. And this is the Farmer's Daughter with our red, blue, and then we got a little accent of black in there. And then the Garden Party, just another color. Every month be, you know, just quite colorful. So hope you enjoy those.